Welcome back to the Neutral Zone. Today we're going to be looking at the Tennessee Volunteers in our 2024 College Football Preview Series. As always, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe for us. We're going to continue to push out this content. College football season's approaching quickly, 2 more months. At the end of the video, please give us your takes in the comment section as well. What teams you guys want to see us preview? This is our second year doing previews. With all that being said, let's get right into what we thought of this team last year. So last year we were very high on this team, Dad. So I had them going 10-2 or 11-1. You had 11-1 or 12-0. So as I said before, we were going to break down game by game, but Tennessee was literally one of the first teams we started our preview series last year. So the format we were doing back then was not the same format we're doing now. So I just gave a vague 10-2, 11-1.
Yeah, nor the way we ended. I think somewhere in the middle of the season, or I'm sorry, not in the middle of the season, but in the middle of our previews, we switched up formats. So, next year we'll have this all better formatted for everybody.
Yeah, but nonetheless, we were far off. They finished 8-4. Obviously a big win against Iowa in the bowl game. But I mean, they definitely disappointed based off of what they did with Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt the year prior. So a lot of people were high on this team. I think some people are going to be high on this team again this year. But let's get right into it.
I think we fell into the Joe Milton little hype that there was. We saw the practices and saw the big arm and thought that he was going to be able to pick up right where Hendon Hooker left off. Obviously, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, Joe Milton was on my Heisman watch early in the year last year. I was a big fan of his. Obviously, he got drafted with Drake May to the Patriots. I thought that was a weird, very weird pickup by them. I guess it was insurance, but I wanted him to have a bigger year than he did. Obviously, transferring from Michigan, sitting behind Hooker, having probably the best pure arm strength in college football last year. And I would say even arm talent in general. I think he can make a lot of throws. His accuracy obviously is lacking. But now you got Nico. And I'm sure we're gonna butcher this name, but Iamaliviava, something like that. Nico takes the reins for Joe Milton in what, year 3 or year 4 of Josh Heupel. Obviously a lot less expectation and kind of a win now approach. I don't think. I mean, Tennessee fans may feel differently, but I think Tennessee has kind of fallen behind the 8 ball in the SEC. When we talk about the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Texas, the Mizzou, the Ole Miss, I mean, there's a lot of teams that would probably be favored over this Volunteers team as constructed. But I mean, coming in as a top 10 ESPN FPI ranked team, but when projected between 8-4 and 9-3, that's not bad at all. About a 6% chance to win the SEC. What are your thoughts kind of going into our preview of Tennessee?
Yeah, I'm not even going to try it, but we saw Nico in the bowl game against Iowa. I was able to produce 3 touchdowns, I think, on the ground and then 1 in the air, but didn't look like he was the passing threat that we thought he was going to be. This was a 4-star, 5-star guy. So now with a full off season and some of their weapons back and kind of flip to what they have back, they did bring back some big weapons. So as you see mentioned there, 2 receivers in their top 5, Squirrel White, who was their number 1 receiver last year, over 800 yards receiving, and then Brew McCoy, who also was a big time recruit. So I think you mix those 2 with what they're bringing back in the running game. So they did lose Jalen Wright.
Bring back Dylan Sampson.
Yeah, they did lose Jalen Wright, but they are bringing back Dylan Sampson, who went for over 600 yards last year. And again, that was the second back. So I think as a bell cow, he will be able to produce much more. They did lose a lot on the line, but they also picked up some players in the portal. So I think the weapons are there. It's really a matter of, is Nico that 4 or 5-star recruit that we saw a couple years ago? Can he build off of, again, he was able to put together a very solid outing against a very good Iowa defense. Can he build off of that? Can he continue to improve? And then what does this SEC look like? I think this SEC is going to be a tough conference, and Tennessee is one of those teams that's kind of taking it the first year because they have a very tough schedule. What's your thoughts on this team?
So, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I just want to clarify something. Under on the slide, it says their class ranking was 81st. They did not have the 81st class ranking. That's one thing I forgot to update on this PowerPoint. They actually
had the 14th.
Yeah, 14th. So I just want to clarify that before people get in the comment section talking crazy. Because I already know the quarterback last name. I'm going to get the blunt of that one. So there's no way to fix that. So let's go ahead and fix the class ranking.
It's spelled right though. We spelled it right.
We definitely spelled it right. But I think the key thing for me is the recruiting class. I do think bringing over Mike Matthews, who if I'm not mistaken, was either the number 1 or number 2 wide receiver in the class. It had to be number 2 because Jeremiah Smith, I think, was number 1. So Mike Matthews was up there as well. I know he was between Clemson and Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. We almost went to go see him play when we were in Georgia, in early November last year. And then I think bringing back Squirrel White, Brew McCoy is going to be big. James Pierce, who's supposed to be a top 5 pick in the draft next year. Nico, if he pans out. And then I think they had a very, very, I would say, quiet yet effective transfer portal class. You bring over Lance Hurd out of LSU, offensive lineman.
Yep.
You bring over Holden Staves, who's a tight end for Notre Dame. Notre Dame is known for tight ends. Chris Brazell, the second, obviously a good receiver at Tulane. With
I think he'll be in the 3. He'll be
with Michael Pratt. Yeah, and obviously he's come over from a small school, but they had success over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Jermod McCoy, he played with DJU at Oregon State. But I also think while looking at the transfer portal additions, you have to look at the losses. Tyler Barham was only there from 1 year after moving over from Louisville, and he was the second leader in sacks on this Tennessee team. Obviously, Pierce is coming back, and he was the main leader. Ramel Keaton has been drafted. Jalen Wright has been drafted. Kamal Haddon has been drafted. Tamira McDonald leaves for the portal, and Elijah Herring leave for the portal. I don't think losing Milton is a big deal when you have Nico replacing him, but I think the loss of Tyler Barron is going to be present. I think James Pierce can kind of mask it a bit, but Tyler Barron is a very good defensive lineman, arguably going to be a top 2 to 3 defensive lineman in the ACC now. And he could have been a top 2 to 3 defensive lineman in the SEC, to be honest. It's debatable. I think Tyler Barron's a really good player. Obviously, like we said Jalen Wright left. You have Dylan Sampson back, but Jalen Wright started for a reason last year, so I think that's still going to be a loss. So I don't know. Based on the expectations we saw last year with this team, I'm not willing and I'm not comfortable saying the team got better from last year. So I think if anything, they moved laterally or took a step back because we don't know what these highly touted recruits are going to be. Now they could pan out and be everything they are supposed to be with their ranking and their their recruit ranking, their star rating. If they pan out, Mike Matthews pans out to be a guy as a 5-star freshman, and he can, replace a Ramel Keaton, then we're looking at this offense completely different. But we truly don't know. And I think based on what we saw, the drop off from the offense from Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt to Joe Milton and Squirrel White, I think we saw, and it was apparent in a lot of those games early on, especially the Florida game. That was not a very good Florida team last year, and Tennessee struggled to move the ball against them. They struggled to move the ball throughout the entirety of the season. And again, this is a team that I was very high on. We both were very high on.
Obviously, yeah.
We were talking about this team being a playoff team. I was talking about Joe Milton as being a Heisman winner. You can go back and watch the videos. I was very high on this team. I have nothing against the team, but this year I am not high on this team at all. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. We'll talk a bit about their record projection. We actually have the same record projection, 8-4. Their ceiling, the floor, your ceiling is higher than my ceiling, but the floor is the same. The only game we disagreed on, games I should say, is the NC State Oklahoma game. NC State and Kentucky game. I think the NC State game is a trap game. I think NC State. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and I have that in my list of teams in the floor. So there are a couple games, and as I mentioned my ceiling, right, and we kind of talked about this. This was a team that was a little weird to me. I think the only game they can't win is the Georgia game, but there's some other games that I feel very uncomfortable about. Alabama, but I think this is let's see what Alabama is under DeBoer. Oklahoma, I think, is a close game, but there were some games that I didn't feel as comfortable about. But I do feel that if everything clicks, if Nico is better than, at least in the offense, than Milton last year, that this team has the potential to pop. I'm not going to say they are going to pop. Obviously, I have them at an 8-4 record, but I think they have the potential to pop because they are bringing back a lot of weapons, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I think my reasoning and my decision to make the ceiling at 2 losses is I don't trust them against Alabama. I know it's a home game. Rocky Top's going to be rocking, but I just think Alabama's defense is going to rattle Nico. I think Nico's a great player. We have to see what he does at the collegiate level. Obviously, we haven't seen that yet because he backed up Milton in the first year. We saw him in the bowl game against Iowa, which Iowa, credit to them, is a great defense as well, but it's a bowl game. A lot of players don't play the same as, a middle of the year SEC conference game. It's a
Yeah,
lot different.
and a non-playoff game, I don't think has the same implications. It doesn't have. Again, no knock to the players, but I don't believe they're going as hard, especially players with NFL draft aspirations. They're probably either opting out or trying not to get hurt.
Yeah, so those are the two games where I'm very iffy about. I think Oklahoma is going to be a good game. But again, I just want to kind of drill into this NC State game. Obviously, NC State beat Clemson last year. That's not why I'm picking them. I just think NC State's style of play, they're bringing back a lot as well. We'll cover them here in the next couple of weeks. They have a top tier defense. And I think what we saw last year with Tennessee, we saw them struggle mightily offensively. So again, if Tennessee pops, like we're saying, and Mike Matthews is a stud, Squirrel White comes back better, Dylan Sampson totes the rock, Nico is what we expect him to be, then I'll look at this team a little bit different. But I don't think based on seeing a Chattanooga 72-0 blowout is going to make me feel more confident. And I think the fact that this game is early on in the year, NC State can surprise them, because I think NC State can surprise a lot of people. We saw Notre Dame kind of take advantage of NC State. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. Guinea Pig Clips brought this stat up maybe a year ago or 6 months ago. I think NC State had the record, if I'm not mistaken, for like the most games in a row not giving up 40 points. And it was like 60 games or something crazy like that, like 50 games. And Notre Dame was the first team to do it, and that's why Guinea Pig brought it up. So I think NC State's defense is stout, and I think with Tennessee struggling offensively, we could see a low-scoring game in this game. And I know NC State's bringing back Concepcion. He killed Clemson at the wide receiver position, and I don't know with how much they're losing on the back end in Tennessee. I don't know how good this team's going to be defensively, losing Kamal Haddon and losing Tamara McDonald. So I'm interested to see how kind of both sides of the ball is played offensively and defensively. But I'm more, and it's crazy to say this, but I'm more confident in Tennessee's defense this year than I am their offense. And that's not something that you would think you'd say after what we saw with Tennessee's offense 2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. That's surprising to me, only because of how much they've lost in the secondary versus, again, bringing back two very good receivers, bringing in a high recruit wide receiver, bringing over Chris Brazil, as you mentioned, who had a pretty good season at Tulane. Because I understand it, because there's one key cog there, obviously Nico and what he turns out to be. But I believe they've put so many weapons around him that he's going to be okay. My concern is this secondary. You mentioned what they lost in the secondary. I think up front they'll be fine. Especially James Pierce is probably going to be a monster this year. But I'm concerned about that secondary. Now, hopefully the pass rush can get there and make that not an issue. And I'm saying hopefully, I'm not a Tennessee fan, but I assume that pass rush is going to help the defensive backfield out a little bit. But they lost so much in the secondary, especially not only in terms of starters, but in terms of depth. And they're kind of restarting that entire secondary.
Yeah, this team, I feel like, is going to be fun to watch. Obviously, you have a young quarterback. You have a lot of young talent. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see the trajectory of how the team progresses. I think if this team can go 10-2, 11-1, like our ceilings are projecting them at, they could jump right back in the mix in the SEC for next season with a good recruiting class and another good portal class. So I'm excited to see that. Let us know in the comment section what you guys think of this team. Also, let us know what other teams you guys want us to preview. We're going to continue doing this until the season starts. And please, as always, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you do not miss a single upload. We're almost at 1,050 subscribers, starting to climb back up, starting to gain momentum again. It's really fun. We'll probably do another giveaway at 1,500 subscribers. We gave away a Tim Tebow signed Heisman jersey at 1,000.
Yes.
So we'll probably give away another jersey here eventually the next 500 subscribers or so. So please join the community, join the family. It's really fun to talk football with you guys day in and day out. And we'll see you guys in 2 days for the Oklahoma Sooners preview. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.